Welcome back my fellow blessed ones to the Triple S Variety channel. I'm your host Triple S, and in this video I'll be breaking down and reviewing the 5th episode of the 2nd season of the Halo TV show titled Alaria. Now let's begin. Point number 1, I love how they've made Sora more quippy and smart-mouthed this season. He may be a bad man, but he does at least have a sense of humour. Point number 2, after being teased to appear in the show again in promotional images, we finally get to see our first brute of season 2, and they're still just as sad to kill as they were in season 1. Also, have we still seriously not seen any grunts yet this season? You know, one of the most numerous members of the Covenant along with Drones and Lek Golo. And speaking of Lek Golo, I'm still holding out hope we get to properly see at least one hunter this season, though the usual pair would be better. Point number 3, we saw Chief reloading a bunch in the last episode, but Riz and Soren must have the bandana skull turned on since they barely ever reload, and Riz fires way more shots with her pistols than she should really be able to. Point number 4, if the show followed the book The Fall of Reach and had Spartans defending the Mac Array's groundside power stations, well then I guess they failed just like they did in the Blue timeline, allowing Covenant ships to get into glassing range. Point number 5, so the shot of Parangosky we got in the Fighters 1 trailer was actually a flashback to when they removed Cortana from Chief. I wonder what Parangosky asked Cortana to do for her in exchange for reviving John. I mean, Cortana was helping Ackerson by running simulations for him, and later on in the episode, Halsey tells John that allowing Reach to fall was a political maneuver by Parangosky and Ackerson to allow them to take control of how the war with the Covenant is fought. Could Cortana have been aiding them in their scheming? And could Ackerson leaving Cortana behind on Reach be also part of her helping Parangosky? It would be the height of stupidity to leave humanity's first smart AI that contains the entirety of human knowledge behind to be captured by the Covenant. Did Parangosky want Cortana to be captured? That could explain how Makee and the Arbiter knew about Cortana and where to find her. Information on Cortana was leaked so that it would lead the Covenant, possibly even Makee specifically, to Cortana. So could Cortana's mission now be to function as some sort of Trojan horse? I've also seen people theorizing that Cortana has either been copied or has split herself, and Makee and the Arbiter only have part of her, whilst the other part is either with Parangosky and Ackerson or still inside Chief, staying silent and waiting to reveal herself. What do you guys think Parangosky asked Cortana to do for her? Let me know in the comments. Point number 6, the inside of this Covenant ship's not looking as purple as I would have liked. Shame. Point number 7, Var Gatanai talking about Makee's gift and prophecy most likely refers to the vision she has when she touches one of the keystones, and could be why she won't let the Arbiter kill Chief, because she has seen him on the Halo ring with her, just like in season 1. She also says she has seen that the Arbiter will be the one to lead them to Halo, though I wonder if that's true or not, since she could just be lying to him that is his destiny so that she can keep him as an ally. I wonder as well what Gatanai could have done to be made an Arbiter. Could he have been given the blame for Silver Team escaping with both the keystones at the end of season 1? And what does he mean when he says Makee lives only by his grace? Does that mean he made sure she survived after being shot at the end of season 1, or does it mean he is now the only thing that stands between her and the other Covenant that want to kill her? Point number 8, so rather than being the supreme commander of the Fleet of Particular Justice as Felvadami was in the Blue timeline before he became the Arbiter, Var Gatanai used to be the supreme commander of the First Fleet of Solemn Accord. We don't hear about a First Fleet of Solemn Accord in the Blue timeline, but we do hear of a Second Fleet, which appeared in the novel The Fall of Reach. The 24-ship fleet engaged 48 UNSC ships at Sigma Octanus 4, and were in a sense both defeated and victorious. Defeated in that the UNSC ships managed to get off 2 salvos of Mac rounds at the Covenant ships by having the repair station Cradle sacrifice itself by acting as a shield to block incoming Covenant missiles after the first salvo, allowing the ships to dedicate all power to recharging their Mac guns. The 2 Mac salvos reduced the number of Covenant ships to 8, which the UNSC ships then engaged and drove off, though the UNSC still suffered significant losses even with the numerical advantage. The Second Fleet of Solemn Accord was victorious, however, in that they managed to scan a foreign artifact that was being kept in the Côte d'Azur Museum of Natural History, which gave them the location of Installation 04. It was in fact scans of this very same artifact that Cortana was decrypting during the Fall of Reach, which then gave her the location of Installation 04, allowing her to slit space jump the Pillar of Autumn to it as it fled the planet. The Covenant were also victorious in that they had managed to secretly attach a spy probe onto the UNSC Iroquois, which then led them to Reach. Point number 9, so I remember saying at one point that Cortana speaking Sangheili in the preview of what's to come this season at the end of the Halo Declassified video for episode 1 is her speaking to Makee about John. I thought this because to me it sounded like the first word she says here is John, but it turns out she isn't saying John at all. I got it right guessing she was talking to Makee about him though. Is that like half a W then? a V. Point number 10, Kwan Ha annoys me this episode, though probably not for the same reason that she annoys everyone else. Kwan Ha in this episode trying to dictate how Chief should mourn Vanek reminds me of the character Liv Malone from the British TV show Skins, who in series 6, after the death of her friend Grace Blood, flips out at all of their mutual friends who aren't mourning Grace's death in the way she wants them to. Lara kinda does the same thing as well, with Soren getting annoyed he isn't feeling and acting like she wants him to, but that I can understand more since they're a mother and father trying to find their son. Point number 11, we arrive at the namesake of this episode, Ilaria, and the 19th Silver Debrief on the Halo Waypoint website has this to say about the planet. Ilaria first appeared in Halo Nightfall, the live-action web series that released in 2014 to introduce Mike Coulter as Jameson Locke. In Nightfall and its peripheral second stories, additional scenes that provide further insight into the characters and events of this story, we learned that Ilaria was once a thriving outer colony, but has recently become an inhospitable wasteland, dry and desolate, ruled by smugglers and pirates after its government and economy collapsed. The instability of Elduros, Ilaria's son, has caused a planet-wide drought known as the Devil's Kiss. A rain has not fallen on the planet for 100 years. Ilaria subsequently featured in several of Kelly Gay's novels centered around Ryan Forge and her crew aboard the Ace of Spades. Two of Ryan's crewmates, Nico and Lesser, are siblings who were orphaned on Ilaria and originally attempted to con Ryan, but instead of turning them over to the local authorities, she offered them positions aboard her ship, Nico as a navigation officer and tech expert, and Lesser as the pilot. Point number 12.
I taught you everything except how to quit.
Excuse me, Halsey, but I think Mendez might have something to say about that. Point number 13, so I get Akasen in both timelines and Parangosky in the Silver timeline will be perfectly happy in leaving Halsey to die on Reach. But considering Blue timeline Parangosky described the Spartan 2s as the single most expensive project in our section, they are, however, also the most effective, I doubt she'd go along with her Silver Timeline counterpart's plan in leaving the Spartan 2s on Reach without their armor to also die. Also, bit extreme of Akasen to not only leave Spartans on Reach to die, but also to capture Soren and put him on Reach in the hopes that the Covenant will also kill him. Akasen really wanted to wipe the board completely before bringing out his own pieces to fight with. Point number 14.
You can't grieve an entire planet.
I don't know, Spock gave it a pretty good try. Point number 15. I wonder what Cortana said to Chief before she was removed from his brain. My guess is she told him where to find Parangosky and Akasen. She told him about Onyx, which is revealed to be at the end of this episode where Kai's been all along with Akasen. Point number 16, yeah, I don't think Chief is referring really to being chosen to be a Spartan, but being chosen to be the Spartan, the one who would lead them, who would be the one they all look up to, the one who would become a symbol and hero of humanity. That's at least what I think he was referring to, though Halsey later says it wasn't her who chose him to be put on the path he's on, but instead it was the Foreigners, which does relate to the Blue timeline. Point number 17, so the couple hear Lara shouting for Kessler and don't think to even mention that the boy they've adopted isn't called Kessler. Are they just assuming the kid must have given them a fake name? Or do they think if they say the boy isn't called Kessler, Lara and Soren won't believe them? Or did Kessler give the boy his name as well as his helmet? Point number 18, so Soren saying he lives in fear of Kessler not feeling loneliness or the absence of love is because he'd rather his son feel that than feeling loved by complete strangers and forgetting about his parents. Right? Point number 19, Halsey reveals that Vanek's surname was Amadi and that he was born on the planet Tribute, a planet that exists in the Blue timeline, appearing for the first time in the novel Contact Harvest, and was actually the birthplace of Spartan 2 Caris 137. Point number 20.
I'm already dead.
So is this meant to be what the mother was referring to in episode 1 when she told Chief she could see his death coming? Point number 21, while I did call that the mother would return as a vision to Kwan, I didn't call that she'd be speaking for all the planets somehow. I wonder if these visions Kwan is receiving are connected to some sort of foreigner Geas. A Geas or gene song being a genetic command placed within an organism or species by the Foreigners, which can lay dormant until activated. As such, Kwan's dad's death and the subsequent vision quest she went on could have activated her Geas. It could either be that, or she's instead receiving visions from the Monitor or Madrigal trying to communicate with her, or maybe a combination of the two. Point number 22, I mean, McKee isn't wrong when she says the Prophets have made Gatanai an arbiter because they fear him, as in the Blue timeline the Prophets would make elites who were getting too powerful or asking too many questions into arbiters, and then sent them out on Chop Suey missions to get rid of them. The Prophets even did the same thing to Aatrox, sending him out on Chop Suey mission after Chop Suey mission, hoping he would finally die and no longer pose a threat to them. They made him an arbiter in all but name. Point number 23, I've seen some people having an issue with Gatanai turning against the Prophets as it feels incredibly rushed compared to Thel Vadami turning against them in the Blue timeline. timeline. But I think it's a bit of an unfair comparison. Vladimir turned against the prophets, rejected the great journey having learned it was false, and also allied with humanity. Gatanai has only turned against the prophets because he believes listening to Makee is the best way to get to the Halo and start the great journey. Much less extreme in my opinion. Point number 24, so the UNSC has captured Kessler. Makes sense since he is the son of a Spartan at all. If Halsey showed interest in him in the previous episode, it would make sense others would as well, such as Parangosky and Ackerson. Point number 25, well, I completely miscalled what Riz would do. I thought seeing Danilo, Lewis and Vanek die in the last episode might convince her to remain a Spartan, but no, she instead takes the path of Lewis and decides to settle down. Good for her, just gotta hope the Covenant don't show up. Point number 26, and to end the episode off, we see Kai, Ackerson and the army of Spartan 3s he's managed to amass on the planet Onyx, which first appeared in the blue timeline in the novel Ghosts of Onyx, and was the place Ackerson chose to have the Spartan 3s trained. And Kai here seems to be following a similar path to Kurt Ambrose, formerly known as Spartan 051. Kurt, during a mission requiring him to be floating around in space, was listed as MIA when his jetpack malfunctioned, which sent him flying off randomly into deep space. This, however, turned out to have been planned by Oni and Ackerson so that they could retrieve Kurt and secretly recruit him to train the Spartan 3s, which is what Ackerson seems to have brought Kai to Onyx to do in this timeline. Point number 27, now let's look at the preview for the next episode from the end of this episode's Halo Declassified video. John somehow found out where Parangosky and Ackerson are, and we see at least him and Soren on Onyx, though we only see Chief on his own going through the base. Parangosky tells Ackerson Chief has been seen, and Kai is surprised to see Chief is alive whilst looking at a security monitor, so she either just believed he had died on Reach or had been told he had. Soren and Chief spotted that more Spartans are still being made, and then interestingly we have Cortana telling Chief to touch the lesser keystone, though he says he doesn't know where it is. Is this actually Cortana, or is Chief just hallucinating or having a Quan-like vision? And if it is Cortana, then that would mean she either was copied or split herself, which still begs the question, is she still in John's head or somewhere in the base? Or is this just a trick the people who put the preview together are playing on us, and it turns out Cortana is actually just speaking to Makee on the Covenant ship, and Chief is speaking to someone else entirely on Onyx? We then see Kai aiming her gun at an exploding door, which I think will then lead to Chief walking in and confronting her taking her helmet off, and then we get the shot of her stopping him and giving him an angry look from the season preview at the end of the classified video from episode 1. Chief beats up a bunch of soldiers just as we also saw him do in the season preview, and the shot of Chief pinning Ackerson to the wall by his throat and then throwing him to the ground from that season preview will most likely happen in this episode. Chief touches the lesser keystone, and I wonder what he will see. Will he and Makee have a shared vision again, just like they started to do in the latter half of season 1, or will the distance between them mean he instead will just have visions of his past again, like in the former half of season 1? Finally, we have Ackerson saying "you're too late." I wonder who he's talking to and what he is talking about. To round all this off, my most disliked part of the episode goes to Halsey saying Riz has chosen to be a nobody. God, Halsey has been a lot more snarky this season compared to the first, which is within character, but saying that to Riz, one of her own Spartans, I'm glad Riz threw it back in her face by laughing and walking away. And my most liked part of the episode goes to seeing more Makee and Arbiter. They're both characters I'm really interested in seeing and learning more about, so it was nice to actually spend a decent amount of time with them this episode. Thank you all so much for tuning in to the Triple S Variety channel. Why not leave a comment below pointing out anything I missed but you noticed? I would love to hear from you all. I've been Triple S, you've all been amazing, and I shall see you all in the next video.